Showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people making Salt Lake City what it is today. It's time for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
Welcome to episode 260 of I Am Salt Lake podcast. My name is Chris Hollifield.
And I'm Chrissy Shelley.
On this episode of the podcast, we sit down with Jay Looney, local Salt Lake City chef and owner of the Chow Truck. We talk about his passion to be a chef, how he became the owner of the Chow Truck. I mean, the Chow Truck is a legendary food truck here in Salt Lake City.
It was one of the first, right?
It was the first, from what I understand. And Jay Looney kind of talks about that story. You're going to have to listen to the interview, though, to find out how that all happened. We're going to be playing it here in just a minute. This episode of the podcast is sponsored by Jed's Barbershop. Go out and get a haircut, a beard trim, or even a straight razor shave. Jed's Barbershop is open 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday 9 to 7, Sunday 12 to 5. No appointment is necessary, so just head on in, get a haircut. They even have 2 locations to serve you. One of those right downtown at 212 South, 700 East. Also in Sugar House, 2153 East, 2100 South. They were recently voted Best in State by City Weekly and KSL. You can go to jedsbarbershop.com for more information. I want to welcome, we have a slew of new listeners with us today, Chrissy.
We do.
And they've kind of migrated over from the last episode.
Well, it was an interesting episode. I mean, they're all interesting episodes.
They were, but this one, I mean, I think a lot of people found it so fascinating that there was an adult sex doll company, a manufacturer.
Oh, yeah.
Here in Salt Lake City.
A lot of people that I've talked to personally who have never listened to the podcast until now were like, did you really interview a sex doll company?
And so, of course, they were intrigued.
Yeah.
They had to go listen to the episode.
Exactly. And it was a good interview.
IamSaltLake.com/259. You can head on over to the website and check that interview out. If you haven't, everybody, I mean, thank you for the comments on Facebook.
Yeah.
Thank you for all the tweets.
We had some fun conversations online.
Well, a lot of people, they were saying, you handled the topic very well.
Yes.
It wasn't like you got all perverted and gross and all of that.
We tried to stay
neutral.
Yeah, very neutral. And it was interesting. It was genuinely interesting. And people who thought they would be grossed out by it weren't.
So thank you very much. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet in iTunes, takes just a minute. You can subscribe right at IamSaltLake.com/iTunes. That'll take you over there and takes just a minute. That way all the podcast episodes will come right to your smartphone when they're released. But hey, this air is dry. Your skin gets dry. You need to moisturize.
Oleo Skin and Beard.
Oleo Skin and Beard. I love them.
Me too. They've saved my skin this winter.
You just rub some skin oil on there.
Oh, yeah.
Dudes like myself with a glorious beard.
Put some of that yummy beard oil on.
You got to put that beard oil in there and moisturize it. They got the beard oil, the beard wash.
The beard butter.
Beard butter.
Yeah.
Help sculpt that beard. But go to oleoskin.com and you can purchase their products, find out more about them, see what local events are going to be selling their products at. And just, head on over there. oleoskin.com is their website. Hey, but I want to mention, so we decided to kind of take things up a notch here in the office. We decided to go out and get like a little cocktail set.
We did. It's so cute.
So we can make some, fancier mixed drinks.
We have a shaker.
Distillery 36. I want to thank them for sponsoring the episode. So now when we're making drinks for the people that come on the show, we can try to make them something a little nicer.
We can do it like Mad Men style. It's awesome.
Great. They make a delicious local Brigham rum. You can pick it up at the local state liquor stores here in the Salt Lake City area. Delicious. Great local rum. Go check it out. Distillery36.com is where you can find out more about them. But with that being said, Chrissy, let's jump into that conversation that we had with Jay Looney, find out his story, find out about the Chow Truck, find out why he loves being a chef here in Salt Lake City. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Let's jump into that conversation. So what do you think of that rum?
It's really good. Like, it's nice and smooth. Like this, I could totally just sip this on the rocks.
Yeah?
No, for real. It's very drinkable.
You were saying you're really a rum guy.
I love rum.
So do you prefer white rum or spiced rum, or do you have like a certain type of rum?
I don't know that I necessarily have a preference. One of my favorite rums is it's a Brazilian rum. It's called Orinoco. It's a white rum.
Okay.
Little bit smoother. This is very similar, actually. It's a little bit smoother and not quite as sweet.
Interesting.
But it's a really, really good rum. Like, yeah, my liquor cabinet, I've got like 2 bottles of tequila because I almost never drink that. I've got 3 or 4 bottles of vodka. I've got 3 different gins, and they're just my favorites, and then rum. Mm-hmm. I've got like 12 different kinds of rum.
So,
so
have
it sounds
you ever
like
tried?
The party is at your house, really. Is
Yeah.
what
You would
saying.
think, like,
We know
seriously,
where to
if you were to look at my liquor cabinet, you'd think I was some kind of alcoholic. But I like sincerely,
in Utah,
I have
maybe, but
I have a drink like maybe 2-3 times a year. I just like
really?
options. When I drink, I just like options.
yeah, exactly,
You
and
know?
that's actually very typical.
Right.
Like in the grand scheme of things, it's just Utah's a little different. Do you? Is this the first time you've tried Distillery
This is the
36?
first time I've tried distillery. Yes, this is the
Nice.
first time I've had theirs, and I'm probably going to have to swing by the liquor store on the way home and grab a bottle because that's
Yeah,
pretty
it's-
decent stuff.
It's great stuff.
I don't
It's,
even like rum, and I like this.
Yeah.
I say that all the time, but it's true.
Yeah,
Like, I'm
it's
not-
good. It's got
not
it's
into
got a
rum.
nice smoothness to it, a good finish. It's got a great nose to it. That's just awesome.
Can
I
you
should smell
imagine if you could serve a shot on your food truck?
You have no idea how many times I've had that conversation. Like, if I could serve
Really?
beer off of my truck,
Yeah.
if I could serve, how awesome would it be?
Are the laws in Utah different for that? Like, you could probably get a beer at a food truck in a different state easily, right?
I don't know.
Okay.
I would imagine some states are more flexible on that. Like, especially, I would think Portland, like the Portland food truck scene, where the majority of their food trucks, and they've got, last I heard, they had like 1,300 food trucks in
Wow.
the greater Portland area. By comparison, Salt Lake has about 150 to 200 active food trucks and about 400 registered.
Oh,
so our scene's
wow.
much
So we're
smaller.
kinda- yeah.
Portland's food truck scene is insanely cool. But the vast majority of their trucks are semi-permanent. Like, they park them in food truck parks, and that's where they stay. You know, they're not super mobile.
They have whole food truck parks.
Yeah, like they've got a couple different blocks just in downtown,
Wow.
middle of the city, Portland, where that entire block is just food truck. They're more carts than they are
I was going to
trucks.
say, it sounds like taco carts.
Yeah, but they back them right up to the sidewalk, and they serve out of the back of the truck. And so you've got like 40 different food carts all around this block, and you can walk around that block and get food from around the world. And
That
it's some
would be
amazing
so
stuff.
nice.
I go through Portland 2-3 times a year on my way out to Lincoln City, which is where my wife and I go to just kind of unplug and recharge.
Yeah.
And we always plan on stopping at the food carts in Portland because we just love it so much.
Yeah.
And there's a couple, like, they know us, and like, we're like, hey, we're heading through, and it's like, oh, good to see you guys again. Haven't seen you in a couple months. And,
That's so cool.
so we've built relationships with some of our favorite trucks. And the best pastrami I've ever had in my life is off of a truck in Portland.
Wow.
Like, I dream about this shit, and it's just insanely good. Like, I'm not even kidding.
Do you ever see Salt Lake maybe eventually getting to that point?
Yeah, the simple answer is yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think our food truck scene can absolutely get to that point. There are a lot of obstacles in the way right now.
Oh, what's the biggest one?
Legislative. I mean, it's so financially cumbersome to run a food truck right now. People look at the food trucks and they're like, oh, they're making money hand over fist, and
Right.
it's so much easier to get into a food truck than it is to get into a brick and mortar restaurant. And in some ways that may be true, but even in a restaurant, if the owner of the restaurant makes 7 to 10% of the overall gross, they're doing pretty well. In the food truck land, if the owner makes 2 to 3%, we're doing pretty good.
Oh, wow.
We have razor thin margins, and part of
Yeah.
the reason for that is just the licensing and permits that are required. Every county that I go to, like I have right now, I've got business licenses in 14 different cities. I've got business permits out of 3 different counties. I get inspected by the Board of Health on average 12 to 14 times a year, whereas your average brick and mortar will get inspected maybe once.
Because you need a permit for each city, right? So if you're in Taylorsville, you need a permit.
Yes,
if you go to Murray, you need a permit.
That's a hassle.
Isn't that ridiculous?
They should definitely do it by county. That's silly.
Is it the same way for like up in Portland area? Do you need one for every different county, every different city?
I don't believe so.
Since we're talking Portland, I mean,
yeah, no, for sure. I don't believe so. I know it's not that same way in Austin. Like Austin, it's like, in most of Texas, you get a permit and you're good. But again, in Austin, their food trucks tend to be a little more mobile than the Portland scene does.
Yeah.
Portland scene, they're basically, mini restaurants that are semi-permanent.
Why do you think it's so restricted here? Why do you think there's so many restrictions on food trucks here in Salt Lake?
I think a lot of it's fear-based, but the vast majority of it, I feel like, is financially motivated. Every city we go to, they want their cut of it. It's like, you're coming into our city.
Yeah.
You're selling food. You're making money. We get to have our cut of that.
Yeah.
Because that was actually...
Everyone wants their piece of the pie.
That was actually a question... Scott, one of the podcast listeners, Scott Nomf, I don't know if you know hip hop very well.
Yeah.
Atheist. He used to go by Atheist. I think he has a different name now because that's what he was asking. He wanted to hear more about like the Salt Lake's restrictions on food trucks, how they're forced to move every couple hours, and places like Portland, like he mentions, have trucks set up in spots 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
So is that still the case in Salt Lake with having to move every couple hours, or is it?
I mean, technically, I believe that regulation is still on the books, but that's one that's not really enforced.
Sure.
The one that's really cumbersome, in addition to all the licensing, is that we can't park within, I believe it's 150 feet, it might be 200 feet, of the main entrance of a restaurant, which essentially eliminates all of downtown. I mean, you're always within 200 feet of the restaurant.
So how do the food trucks like at Bar X? Because there's a couple of restaurants right there, right?
Right.
How do they get away with it?
Well, part of it
or
is...
are we supposed to be quiet about that?
No, it's totally cool. Part of it is the fact that they're parking there after the hours of most of the restaurants. They're there late night with Bar X and things like that.
Sure.
So they're allowed to when the restaurants are closed for business.
It's not that they're allowed to, it's that the restaurants... It's not enforced unless the restaurant calls and complains.
Gotcha.
If a restaurant, if I... like, for example, I'm not going to name any names, but last year during Sundance, I parked in front of a prominent restaurant that's very close to one of the venues where they show the movies at. And the owner, he and I know each other. We've interacted. We've had beers together and stuff. I would say, we're on a fairly good basis. He was quite upset with me for parking where I did. Now, the truth is, I parked a little bit closer than I had intended to, because in order for me to park on the street, I have to feed one of the parking meters, which are all over downtown. And so I had basically gone into the Department of Transportation and said, I want this meter for this day for this many hours. And they're like, okay, cool. We'll put a bag on it. It'll say, no parking, closed, whatever.
Oh, that's cool.
You have, and they print me out a permit, so I have a permit for it. So if parking enforcement comes by, I'm just like, yeah, I got this meter, it's mine.
Yeah.
I had intended to buy the one a little bit further down the block, but when I'm looking online, I picked the wrong one. So I was rather close to his restaurant, which was kind of a
It's not like
move.
You're out there with like a tape measure measuring the feet from the entrance.
And the truth is, his restaurant services a very different clientele than my truck was. I mean, we're not competitors at all in any sense of the word. But he was upset that I was out in front of his restaurant. And so, after a little bit of a heated discussion, I'm like, look, I get it. I'm parked a little close. It is kind of a dick move. So just in the interest of not being a dick, I'm going to go ahead and move, to a different location. And he and I are totally cool now,
That's cool.
We've run into each other and exchanged pleasantries and stuff, but it's, that's just one of those things, it's the food trucks. A lot of the regulations aren't enforced unless somebody brings it to their attention. And at that case, he had called the Board of Health and, I don't know. He said that he called the police too. I don't know if he did or not.
Jeez.
And the truth is, had the Board of Health and the police showed up, I probably could have talked my way out of it and stayed there. But again, I don't want to be a dick. I don't want to, so.
And I'm sure the restrictions have lightened throughout the years. And you own Chow Truck, which is the
delicious.
Original food truck of
the
Salt
OGs.
It was the first food truck in Salt Lake.
The first gourmet food truck in Salt Lake.
And so, obviously, was a different owner at that time?
Sue Ann Chow started it.
Okay.
And the truth is, she's like the godmother of the Utah food truck scene. Had she not done what she did, all these, the 400 some odd trucks that we have in Utah today wouldn't be around. She really blazed the trail. She spent a lot of time working with the Board of Health to establish regulations and teach them, here's what you need to look for. Here's, regulations and rules that make sense. Here's some of the stuff that you're trying to do that might make sense in a restaurant setting, but don't on a food truck.
Where is she now? Is she just out of the scene completely?
For the most part. Her and I talk fairly frequently. She's an old friend of mine. I worked with her for 2.5 years on the truck before she sold it to me.
And that's what I was going to get into is kind of how we kind of jumped
We jumped right in.
We jumped right into this conversation.
Like no intro or nothing.
Well, and Chrissy and I, we go back and add an intro to the podcast later.
Cool.
And whatnot. So it did seem kind of like a harsh start there. That's kind of where, I was curious. I was going to ask, how you got involved. But actually, I want to back up a little bit here with this conversation.
Sure.
Even find out where are you from Utah? Or where are you?
Born and raised.
Born and raised here in Utah.
Which part?
I was born in Provo, of all things. Not something I like to admit, but
a lot of people are born in Provo.
I moved to Provo over 20 years ago from California with my family. So,
nice.
And
I
Chrissy
lived in
Provo. And
I won't ever live there again. Bless you, Provo.
Do you still have family down in Utah County?
No. Most of my family's up north in Ogden and are scattered around the Salt Lake Valley.
Right on.
So now you're the owner of a food truck.
Yeah.
When you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
So I kind of grew up in food. My dad has been in food service since before I was born. He does institutional food, which is like hospitals, universities, food on a massive scale. When I was just a wee lad, he was the manager of the cafeteria at the church office building downtown. Which, for those of you who don't know, it's a 26-floor massive office building. He served between 3,000 and 5,000 meals a day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just food on an insane scale. And so 6 years old, going into this kitchen that's capable of producing that volume of food. I mean, we're talking like 300-gallon stock pots that are the size of, hot tubs.
How fascinating
full
was
of
that?
like soup. Yeah, it was magical to me. Just completely captured my imagination. And I knew from a very, very young age that I wanted to be in food. So much so that for 5th grade career day, I came as a food service manager because that's what my dad was. And that's what I knew. I didn't know chef.
Yeah.
I didn't know, line cook. I knew this is what my dad does. This is what I want to do.
Right.
14 years old, found a burger joint that I wanted to work at. It's no longer in business, but it's fairly similar in concept to like Fuddruckers, where you get like the burger and the bun, and then you got to put
make
your own
your
shit
own.
on it. Yeah,
What was
exactly.
it? What was it?
Flaky Jake's was the name of it.
Oh, I was going to say, I know.
Yeah, chain based out of Seattle, Washington, and I mean they closed down 20 years ago or so. But 14 years old, that's where I wanted to work. I lied about my age on the application, told them I was 15 so I could be hired as a dishwasher.
Nice job.
And anybody who's worked in food service knows that dishwashing, it's a shit job. It's the worst. I mean, you go home soaked from head to toe, smelling like ass.
I
mean,
remember
it's a terrible
when I was
job.
in high school, that's what all my friends did.
Yeah.
They went to the nice restaurants in town and they worked as dishwashers. It was like the job.
It's a high school job,
Yeah.
So that's where I started, and I loved it. Most people complain about it, like, oh, dishwasher sucks, it's the worst, I loved it. I was working in food service. So I spent the next 8-9 years working my way up, working a couple different restaurants, ended up at the Lion House downtown, managing their prime rib and seafood buffet on the weekends and working at the pantry during the week. So I was, 21, 22 years old, making just barely above minimum wage because, food pays for shit. And I just decided, it's like, I'm looking around at all my friends. They're buying cars and houses and getting married and having kids. And I'm just like, man, I want stuff, So I got out of food, got into corporate America. I sold cars for a little while. I worked for the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Company for several years. Got to go to some really great hotels on their dime, which did not suck.
I could imagine.
Yeah. Learned a lot about service and food from them. I was in UPS management for about 6 years, working in their phone center here in Salt Lake, which, great work. As I was getting closer to my 40th birthday, my life didn't suck. I want to be super clear on that. I didn't hate my job. I didn't hate my life. I mean, things were generally good. By most measurements, I had a good life. But I was ultimately I was working for a paycheck.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do something that I loved. You
wanted a career.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I wanted to do something I was passionate about. And so, I took a flying leap and decided to get back into food. So I took a massive pay cut, ended up working for $8.50 an hour at almost 40 years old at the Metropolitan. You guys remember the Metropolitan?
I've heard of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, for 15 years, they were the crown jewel of Utah's fine dining scene. Like, we wouldn't have places like Copper Onion and Pago and HSL and Finca. And none of those fine dining restaurants that we have would be around if it weren't for the trail that the Metropolitan blazed. So I ended up working there at $8.50 an hour as a line cook. I was the oldest guy on the crew. I was also the only one that didn't have a culinary degree because I never went to culinary school. My degree's in IT, of all things. And I loved it.
Was that difficult to get hired as a line cook without a culinary degree? I mean, is there a
Not
prerequisite?
so much. Well, okay, so they have what they call a stage, okay? That's a French word, and if you Google stage, and make sure you find the French definition of it, because it's spelled like stage, S-T-A-G-E, It basically tells you that this is an unpaid shift worked in a restaurant, so the chef can assess your skill level, and so you can assess whether it's a kitchen you feel like you want to work in.
So it's almost like an internship.
Very much so. Very much so. But it's just like a one day. Sometimes it's a week long. So they vary.
Yeah.
And so I staged at the Metropolitan, where I got to come in and work and stuff. And what Google doesn't tell you is that it's more on the level of like a cross between an Olympic time trial and a Broadway audition. I mean, it's that nerve-wracking.
So it's really intense.
Yeah, very much so. Because you walk into this kitchen and you've got the normal crew there who works like a Swiss watch. They know each other. They know how each other moves. During dinner service, like they're a well-oiled machine. And you bring in this newbie who has no clue what the menu is, how they move or anything. I mean, basically, I'm coming in to fuck up their shit all night long.
Right.
And they know it.
Yeah.
Now, they're not thrilled about this at all, but they're not going to be openly hostile because there's a good chance that I could end up working with them.
Right.
So they're not happy I'm there, but they're not dicks about it, but there's this tension, that's very much there.
Like Ratatouille. In the movie.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, precisely.
Compare it to a movie, Chris.
Well, I mean, real life and movies, they're basically the same.
That's a good comparison, too. So I went in and staged after the stage shift, and that's a whole nother story. Very nerve-wracking. I thought I completely just bombed and that the chef was just going to, kick me out of his kitchen at any moment. He did end up, he's like, look, you've got some skills. It's clear that, your knife skills could use a lot of work, but you've got some passion for it too. You've got, we're going to offer you a job.
And he must have been a good chef because the people that I know that do the best hiring work know that even if you don't have the skills yet, but you have the passion and the drive, those are the best people to hire.
Well, and I'll give a shout out to him. It's Justin Shiflett. He was the chef at the Metropolitan. Right now, he's the chef at Stone Ground downtown.
Okay.
Does some amazing stuff. A super awesome Italian menu. They extrude all of their own pastas. Their pizza's fantastic. I mean, he's great. And he also is the chef at the Garage on Beck.
I love the Garage.
Yeah, and they got
nom, nom, nom.
And good music, too.
The funeral potatoes, that's his creation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everyone I talk to says if you go to the Garage, get the funeral potatoes.
It's true.
Like, that's the meal to get there.
Sounds like we need to track him down and bring him on this podcast.
He'd be
maybe
awesome
steal
to
a
have
recipe.
for real.
Yeah, find out. Because, I mean,
That'd be fun.
That's, I don't know how much you've been following the podcast, but it's been this continual journey of finding out, all the awesome players in Salt Lake, kind of what we're doing to make our community better,
Yeah.
For sure.
So fast forwarding a little bit, you were working at the Metropolitan.
Yeah.
When did the Chow Truck come into play?
I spent about a year at the Metropolitan before they closed down.
Okay.
Basically, the owner just decided she was done owning a restaurant.
Oh.
And, closed down. And so I was executive chef from the Metropolitan. I went to the Prairie Schooner up in Ogden. It's a historic steakhouse. You dine in covered wagons. They got like taxidermy dead animals and shit all around.
Ooh, that would be so much fun.
Is it still around?
Oh, totally.
We need to go.
It's like a landmark. Like it's been like anybody from Farmington North knows the Prairie Schooner. It's been there for 40 years, and it's the place to go for like anniversaries, proms. I mean, it's the place to go to for real.
How great would it be? This is so random, but like if they killed an animal, used the meat in the thing, and then taxidermied it, so you could like look at the animal you're eating.
What kind of food is it?
Vegans
Like
would be
burgers
mad.
or
No.
steaks,
It's steaks. It's like home cooking steaks. They've got a really kind of a classic menu, and they do a good job. I know the new chef there. He worked with me for a while, and I know the current owners. I mean, we're still really good friends, and I mean they're awesome people. So if you want to, I mean, you could even record a session up there. I mean, they're badass people for real.
Fun.
So I was up there for about a year because I thought that I wanted to be an executive chef. Once I got to be executive chef, it was a lot of hand-holding and babysitting and paperwork. And I love touching the food. That's what I love about what I do is the food, the creation of it, just having my hands on it. So I left that. And when I left that, I was kind of looking for something to do. I was teaching up at the University of Utah at the time, teaching a class on cultural aspects of food, just food from all over the world, that kind of thing. Fantastic thing. And another story. But when I left the Prairie Schooner, I'm like, I want to open a food truck, because the food trucks were just starting to hit the scene. Roy Choi in LA had just started his truck. Ludo Lefebvre in LA also had his, it's like the food truck thing was like just starting to break. And I was like, this could be awesome. So I told my wife, I'm like, I think I want to buy a food truck. And she's like, okay, you're getting ahead of yourself. And God bless her and her wisdom. You know, she always reins me in and kind of balances out my excitement and passion with reason and logic. Yeah, she's fantastic. So she's like, why don't you go work on one before you do? And Sue Ann had the Chow Truck for about a year maybe. And so I had eaten at her truck, loved her truck, and I'm just like, yeah, this could be cool. So had a conversation with Sue Ann. It's like, look, I want to come work on your truck because I want to learn about food trucks because I want to own one. Mm-hmm. She's like, all right, cool. Come work on the truck. Well, after about a week and a half, 2 weeks of working with her, I was like, fuck that. I do not want to ever own a truck. I loved working on it, worked with it for about 2.5 years, but I saw the amount of time and energy she put into it to make it successful, and I wasn't willing to make that investment.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, she's just a badass. She's like this little 5'0" Chinese lady and just a powerhouse. You know, she just kicks ass, and I got a lot of love and respect for her. So I worked with her for 2.5 years, and, you know, my personal chef thing kind of took off, my catering took off, and ultimately it came to a point where I couldn't afford to be on the truck as much as I wanted to, or, you know, eventually at all. But her and I maintained contact, stayed good friends. I helped her with some menu development and things like that. And, you know, her and I still keep in touch. You know, we talk, you know, a couple times a month and whatever. When she got ready to sell the Chow Truck, because she was interested, I mean, she'd done it for, you know, almost 6 years and just decided there's other things I want to do. And who can blame her? I mean, food trucking is exhausting work, no matter how you cut it, you know? And so I was like, you know what? I think I do want to buy a food truck at this point, you know?
Even though a week and a half into doing it.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, no, that's never going to do this.
Doing it, but then
what kind of made you shift your mindset?
The vast majority of it was the fact that my wife was on board, you know, and her and I make a great team. Like, you know, we're very much yin and yang, and she, like, all the business stuff, she's super good with, and I suck at, you know, food. She has no interest in cooking or anything to do with it, and that's where I rock, you know, and so we make a really good team. And she handles, you know, the payroll, the accounting, you know, and I handle making sure the truck has awesome food and that we, you know, my team gives killer service to every customer.
Yeah.
So it's like we make a really, really good team. And so knowing that Sue Ann did all of this on her own, and that Megan and I would be coming in as a team and be able to kind of take on different aspects of the role, all of the roles that Sue Ann had to cover by herself, just made made sense.
Yeah.
You know, and after several conversations, Megan and I just decided, you know what, this makes sense. Let's go ahead and do this.
So does your wife come and work with you on the food truck?
That's so not her deal.
Yeah.
She's been on the truck and worked a shift once when we got in the weeds really hard at an event. The event said, yeah, no, we're planning on about this many people. And, you know, this is kind of what we're planning on. We need you there from these hours. And it ended up being like 6 times as many people. And we ran out of food like an hour into the event. And so Megan had to go to the commissary, which she loves. That's sarcasm. Pick up more food, bring it to the truck. And then it was me and one other person on the truck. And so Megan jumped on the truck to kind of bail us out. And so it was the 3 of us just working our asses off for another 2 hours. Until we finished up the event. And that's the one and only time Megan has worked on the truck. And afterwards, she's like, yeah, number one, I got mad respect for you guys because I had no idea how stressful and how hard it is to actually do the work on a truck, just filling orders and stuff.
Well, and it's a tight quarters there. I mean,
we have like maybe 50 square feet tops.
How many people typically work on your truck with you at a time?
In the wintertime, 2. In the summer, as many as 6.
Wow.
Which is just awful because it's really hot in the summer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No,
it seems like that would be the worst time to have more people in there.
In the wintertime, we always get asked, would you guys have a heater in there? I'm like, yeah, it's that flat top down at the end there. That's as good as it gets. You
just turn on the stove really hot.
Yeah. And even like you get 3 feet away from the stove. Like today, we were at Gallivan Center and like 2 feet away from the stove and it's back down to 12 degrees, you know? So all 3 of us are huddled around the flat top trying to keep warm. But in the summertime, it's oppressively hot.
Right.
You know, it gets inside that truck, it averages over by the flat top about 110 degrees, 115. Wow. So it's really important to stay hydrated.
The metal's retaining heat and absorbing
exactly.
heat.
It's like it's like an oven. You know, it's just this little tin can in the the midday sun, and there's not a lot you can do about it. And so we keep a close eye on who's working the flat top. We try and rotate out, stay hydrated, things like that. But it's comfort-wise, we don't have that on the truck. It's not a comfortable place to work. It's just not.
But you enjoy it.
Oh, love it.
What do you
love it?
What do you love the most about it? Is there 1 or 2 things that you love the most out of a food truck versus maybe inside a restaurant or?
Most of it. Okay, so let me kind of preface this by giving you a little background on just a typical commercial kitchen. There's this thing that happens, and I learned about it while I was at the Metropolitan. I call it the dance. Okay. You've got 6 guys on a line. Okay. Each one working their station. There's the meat station. There's the seafood station. There's, the hot apps. There's salads. There's the pastry station in back. And there's, somebody who generally runs the wheel, or basically, when tickets come in with orders, they're the ones that call things out and coordinate everything and make sure everything happens the way that it should, in the order it should.
Sure.
And in a timely manner.
They're the project manager.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly. Basically, you're on this line. You've got all of your prep, all the food that you need to create all these dishes, 5 or 6 different elements per dish. Each station has 4 to 5 different dishes. All of this prep is in little refrigerators underneath the counter that you've got right in front of you. And so when a ticket comes in, the person at the wheel starts calling things out. Okay. He'll call out every dish, the meat dishes, the apps, the salads. He calls out everything. Okay. So if I'm on, say, for example, the app station, okay, I'm not just listening to what's called on my station. I'm also listening to what's called on the salad station to my right and to the seafood station on the left, because I know some of his prep is on my station. I know some of my prep's on his, and, on both sides of me. So it's kind of like somebody calling out a square dance. Okay. Every ticket that comes in is a new dance. And so in listening to what's called out, I have to, in my mind, quickly know, it's like, okay, he's got 2 salads and a soup to get out. So, and I've got this to get started. So I'm going to open my drawer, pull out the stuff that I need. I know that I heard that he has a soup. I've got his soup in this drawer, so I'm going to pull his soup out and set it on the counter for him so it's ready, because he's working on the 2 salads that just got called out already. The seafood guy, he's in his station pulling out seafood. He pulls out whatever I need, and we're moving back and forth and staying out of each other's way. And it's this, this little kind of dance that happens.
Highly coordinated.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
And it's different with every ticket. It's not like a routine, so every ticket is different. Every movement is different, but we all know how each other move. And it's really kind of groovy because there's not a lot that really needs to be said on the line. It's like, move out of my way, to your left, to your right, behind, anything like that. That doesn't happen a whole lot on the line during service. During service, it's like our heads are down, we're prepping our dishes. The only thing that gets called out is, how far are you on this dish, so I know when to prepare this dish. We'll communicate just how long we're taking on each dish, so we know the timing of everything that we've got going on with all the other dishes in each ticket.
I have so much mad respect for everyone who makes my food right now.
Yeah. Well, especially on a food truck.
Holy
crap. And it happens very much. And on a food truck, it's even more condensed than that, because you've got so much less space.
Yeah.
And it happens in much tighter quarters. We get way more friendly with each other. There's no, excuse me, sorries, pardon me, that doesn't happen, because it's just, but at the same time, it's like, if you feel a hand on your right hip, to move to your left. Because somebody's trying to get into a drawer or something, we just kind of move each other around, and we
not
dance
trying to get friendly with each other.
Exactly.
Whoa, you're trying to make out with me here.
Yeah. We just kind of move each other around, and we get super friendly, and we're always looking to not only just what's our responsibility, what am I doing on my station? I'm looking at what's going on his station, what's going on her station, and we all just kind of help each other out and work together. And there's very few words exchanged.
Sure.
The most that happens is calling, when a ticket gets called out and somebody calling something back, and maybe finding out how far you are on, how much longer on this particular ticket. That's really about the only communication that happens on a busy night on the truck.
We actually need to take a quick sponsor break really quick.
Cool.
And then we'll come back. I got a ton more questions,
Awesome.
Of course, to ask you. So we'll take a quick break, grab a drink of water, be back to chat with Jay some more. So hang tight. Are you a barber looking for a job? Jed's Barbershop is a local barbershop right here in Salt Lake City. They send their employees to other countries to do service work. They support and contribute to animal rescues. They've helped people in other countries open up over 60 salons or barbershops. Right now, they're hiring for a new location on 900 South. Join their team and email your resume to jed@jedsbarbershop.com. The Chow Truck.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's people listening are not familiar with it at all. Talk about the menu on there. Does it change very often, or how often does it change?
So it's one of the things that I like is the ability to be creative. Like, I like exploring food. I like, playing with new food and trying new flavors and new, combinations of things and new techniques. And the Chow Truck is a really great place to do that. So we have our kind of core menu. It's Asian inspired tacos and sliders. So we've got like a coconut lemongrass chicken. That's my wife's favorite. We've got a spicy beef. It's got some sweetened black vinegar in there. It's got kind of a tangy, spicy flavor to it. It's not spicy as in heat. It's just got a bunch of different spices that give it a ton of great flavor. Some fennel, some anise, things like that. We've got a pineapple ginger pork, which is my personal favorite because it's piggy, and that's awesome. Panko crusted tofu, which we deep fry, so it's like all crispy on the outside. Even if you don't dig on tofu, like you're like, tofu, that's nasty. No, try ours for real. It'll change your mind and rock your world. It's really, really good. And then our calamari, which is legendary.
Ooh, I'm gonna try that.
Yeah, we've.
Yum.
I probably shouldn't say this like publicly, but we've there's a few places where we've parked where we've been close to notable seafood restaurants, and the workers from the restaurant will come over and get our calamari and then head back over to the restaurant.
Oh wow,
that's happened more than once. No,
that's
but
a good recommendation.
Yeah, no, our calamari is really it's legendary.
So what would like say for my case, I don't do gluten. What is there very many gluten-free options?
Yeah, and here's what I always tell people. Number one, the coconut lemongrass chicken, we do that as a taco because it comes on a corn tortilla. You're completely gluten-free. No worries. If you have celiac, that we can also do unencrusted tofu, which we sear on the flat top and then put it in the same sambal vinegar glaze, rice vinegar glaze, so it still gets that nice sweet, tangy, spicy kind of flavor to it. It just doesn't have the crunchy of the panko crust. So you've got two options there. If you have celiac. If you're just eating gluten-free and you're okay with like a little gluten, the pineapple ginger pork and the spicy beef both have 1 cup of soy sauce per every 10 pounds of meat.
Okay.
So if you got celiac, it's still a no because it'll still fuck you up. But if it's just I'm eating gluten free and I want to limit the amount of gluten that I have in my diet, kind of a thing, a lot of people are okay with the pineapple ginger pork or the spicy beef. So
I was just curious.
Yeah, no, for sure.
What is? Do you have like a number one seller? The thing that's the most popular item on your truck?
I wish I could say yes, but the truth is, just within that core menu, people love different things, and it depends on the location too. Some locations, like when we're up at REI on, 39th South there, we sell a ton of calamari. The people in that neighborhood love our calamari. And so that's always a good seller up there. When we're down at Gallivan Center, it's hard to say, probably either the pork or the chicken. So the locations vary too,
That's so interesting that the different demographic areas have different food preferences.
Well, and what we're learning with the Utah food truck scene is the tastes that different areas have. For example, like Fat Kid Mac and Cheese. They're friends of I'm friends with most of the food trucks on the scene. And we're like this little community. We take care of each other. We look out for each other. Fat Kid Mac and Cheese does really well out on the west side. If we were to go out there to that same location, that same day, park right next to them, they'll do twice as much business as us.
Why is that? What do you think it's because people are like that mac and cheese? Yeah. Are a little more familiar with it?
Yeah, it's way more familiar. It's way more accessible. And I mean, nothing against the anybody in that neighborhood, but they're not as adventurous culinarily speaking. Whereas our neighborhood, if Fat Kid were to come up to REI and park right next to us, we'll probably do twice as much as they will.
Right. Because you probably have in that neighborhood people by REI too. They're a little bit more health conscious.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. So that makes
sense.
And
what people don't realize about the Chow Truck is that our food is extraordinarily healthy. We make everything from scratch. That coconut lemongrass chicken, that's an engaging process. And I mean, we start with 20 stalks of lemongrass, peel it, bruise it, chop it up, blend it up. We start with tons of fresh ginger, the coconut milk, all the curry spices that go into it. It's, we toast those spices, then grind them up, then throw them in. I mean, it's anything on our menu gets made from scratch, and there's a lot of love and care that goes into each one of those items.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned the lemongrass tacos. Because on Twitter, the real chef Tom, I don't know if you know Tom, the real chef
Tom Woodbury, he's a good guy.
Yeah, great guy.
Love him.
He responded on Twitter is, what makes your lemongrass tacos so amazing? Do you put real grass in it?
Absolutely.
And so when you said that, I felt like I needed to mention.
I know the whole time I'm like, I was thinking about the Twitter comment.
It's funny because a lot of this conversation is just kind of going into what some of these questions.
Yeah,
that's cool.
But actually, there was one other question. Let me ask this before I forget.
Sure.
From Scott that asked earlier. He was also curious. He wanted to hear about how you feel about all the competition that's been popping up over the last couple of years. I remember when the Chow Truck was the only food truck around, And now there are food truck nights in Utah Valley because there's so many. So what do you think of the competition? I mean, it sounds like you guys get along pretty well.
For the most part, yeah. I mean, there's one or two trucks that are dicks, and everybody knows they're dicks. And, I don't know if they know they're dicks or not, but, everybody else kind of knows which trucks to avoid. But those are few and far between, For the most part, we get along with each other. I was even talking with Clayton from Silver Moon Taqueria, this afternoon, and he and I are collaborating on a couple things. It's like wintertime is a rough time for food trucks.
Yeah.
Our business drops off significantly
because nobody wants to be standing outside waiting for food.
Yeah, especially on a day like today. Gallivan Center's
It was
typically
cold today.
It was
it was
really
like
cold.
12 degrees, and the roads were. I mean, they're still shit. Even coming back down here, they were just awful. You know? So the roads have been awful all day. I kind of knew it was going to be an awful day there, but rather than just, be like, oh, today sucks and we're doing shitty business. Me and Clayton had some really good conversations about, okay, how can we get through this winter? Here's some ideas. So we're brainstorming, bouncing things off each other. How can I help you? Oh, you can do this and I can help you do that. And okay, awesome. So it's like we're totally helping each other out because Clayton, although he does tacos, he does different tacos than I do. Like he doesn't view me as a competitor. I don't view him as a competitor.
They're completely different styles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And even like some of the Asian trucks, like, Thiep's Eats. They were at Gallivan together with us. He and I chatted about some things. He does Asian food. I do Asian food. I wouldn't consider us competitors. He does very different Asian food than I do. Cup Bop, they're one of the other big players. Again, don't consider him a competitor. I can't think of a single truck that I would actually consider a competitor. We're all kind of in the same food truck
Which is cool because
scene.
you all have such specific styles
Exactly.
and specific flavors that whoever's going to be attracted to you is going to be attracted to you.
Exactly.
And if they want something else, they're going to go get something else.
You were
Exactly.
mentioning, though, a few dicks out there.
Yeah.
There was a few. I mean, what in your eyes makes somebody be a dick? Or
Okay, so
what,
no, that's a good question. It's a fair question. Okay, so like by and large, like even today, okay, when a bunch of food trucks get together, we'll trade food. It's like because we get sick of eating our own food. As awesome as our food is on the Chow Truck, I get tired of eating the same thing. You're on the truck, you're hungry. It's like, what am I going to have? Spicy beef taco. Okay. I've had about 100 of those in the last week.
Yep.
It's like they get, as awesome as they are, they get old. You want some variety. So anytime more than, 2 or 3 trucks get together, it's like, dude, you want to trade food? Yeah, let's trade food,
That's
and
awesome.
So I'll give them food. They give me food. There's no money that exchanges hands. It's like, I'll make you whatever you guys want for your crew. I'll come over to your truck. You'll make me whatever I want, and we'll call it even.
It's a barter system.
Yeah, exactly.
It's great.
And there's a couple trucks where I've gone to them. It's like, hey, you guys want to trade food? Oh, well, our average ticket's like, our average item is like way more expensive than yours, and so we just like we really don't trade food. I'm just like, fuck you, man. I mean, I'll give you like 9 tacos for one of your whatevers, and now we're even.
Yeah.
If you want to,
you want a nickel and dime.
Yeah.
You could
right?
make an equivalent amount of food.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's
And I've had people from those same trucks come over to my truck, and I know there are lots of other trucks that do the same thing and have the same attitude. It's like, you're on a food truck, okay?
Yeah.
There's a brotherhood there, or a sisterhood, as the case may be. I'm not going to charge you for food. If you and your crew are hungry, fine, come over. Order whatever you want. I'll make it for you.
Mm-hmm.
You want calamari, which is one of my highest priced items. I'll make you some calamari. I mean, don't screw me and order like 5 orders of calamari.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, you want calamari? Cool, I'll give you some.
Well, I think it even goes back to you got to watch each other's back.
Yeah.
I mean, you're out there, you got to.
Because you want everyone to succeed so food trucks stay in business.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the way I look at it. Is the more I can help these other food trucks, the more successful they are, the more successful I am too. It just opens a community, and like I said, there's a lot.
And it
of
opens up like the regulators to see what needs to change, so that you guys can be more successful.
Exactly. And when we work together, right now we're working with Connor Boyack from the Libertas Institute to try and get some of this legislation changed in the upcoming session to kind of ease some of these financial burdens on the food trucks. So there's a lot of us that have gotten together to work with the Food Truck League and Connor Boyack to change the way that things are run. And that's a good thing for all of us. It makes sense for us to work together, stick together, and have each other's backs. It just does. Now, some trucks don't see that way, and they're just dicks. So
now to back up a little bit, earlier in the conversation, you were mentioning how you need like a permit in each city. Mm-hmm. Is there a city in the local area that you're just like, it's not even worth it? It's
lots of them.
Not even worth getting a permit. What makes it not worth it?
Layton is one of the biggest ones right now. Layton actually requires that I pay for a background check on every one of my employees that's on the truck.
What?
Which is, it's fucking ridiculous. They don't require that for any of the employees at a brick and mortar restaurant. What makes my truck different? just because it's got four wheels.
Because it's a windowless van.
Yeah. It's not like I have free candy written on the side or some shit.
That is so weird. That is, I wonder,
That is really interesting.
Yeah, so you stay out of Layton.
I stay out of Layton.
But you'll go to Ogden. No?
Ogden's a little bit far for us. We've got kind of a range. Our truck is, and most trucks, they're mobile, but they're not like long distance mobile. Like if you saw the movie Chef, that movie's bullshit. I love that movie.
I don't know if I've
haven't seen it.
Oh, okay.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, no, you totally need to see it.
Is it a movie about food trucks?
Yeah, Jon Favreau. He's
Okay.
amazing in it. Dustin Hoffman's in it for like 10 seconds. It's a great movie. It really is.
Dustin Hoffman, 10 seconds? I'm in.
Yeah, and there's there's a lot of truth to it. It's got Robert Downey Jr. in it for like 30 seconds.
Hey,
Yeah,
it's getting better and better.
It's a great. Oh, and Sofia Vergara, she's in it for a little bit longer. It's a great movie for real. Worth checking out.
Chris is interested.
Yeah, Chris just peeked. He's like, Sofia Vergara.
Is this a new movie?
3 years ago, maybe four.
Okay,
I haven't even heard
It's
of
on
it. We should
Netflix.
check it out.
Total. Okay, Netflix. I'm sold then.
Yeah.
We got Netflix. I'm a cheapskate. Anyway,
But basically, the story is they take this truck across the country, making money, stopping wherever they are and, selling tacos and stuff and Cuban sandwiches and making money on the way.
They're like overnight millionaires.
A lot of work that went into it. But yeah, something along those lines, But yeah, driving a truck across the country like that, no, that wouldn't happen.
What was that reality show? The food truck.
The Great Food Truck Race?
Yeah, is that still going on?
I don't know if it is or not.
Would you do something like that ever?
I'd be open to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been approached about several food shows. I catered a wedding for what's this been 3 years ago now, and the sister of the groom was a casting director for Chopped, and she asked me if I wanted to be on Chopped, and I'm just like, not really. It's kind of not my thing. I'll try to whip up a dish in 20 minutes with weird ass ingredients.
But wouldn't that be such good exposure though? Not really. No.
Maybe, but I'm not at a point in my life where I'm hungry for exposure. I don't do things just it's exposure. I don't care.
Yeah.
What I care about is that I do awesome food. And if you only give me 20 minutes with these ingredients, sure. I mean, I'm sure I could hang with some of these guys and I'm sure I could turn out some awesome food, but that's not my style. I would much rather spend, 3 days making a killer mole that'll change your fucking life than trying to throw together something in 20 minutes that involves, gummy bears and saffron.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
that makes sense.
Let's actually, before we completely run out of time and whatnot, I want to talk about you're a private chef.
Yeah.
People can hire you to be their private chef.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess talk about that. I mean, how does that work? What do you specialize in or...
Well, private chef is, there's actually two different sides of it. Private chef, if you want just like a dinner party, like I do a lot of these, especially in like November, December, group of friends, 8, 10, 12 of them. It's like, hey, come over and do a dinner party for us, So we'll kind of establish what their budget is. I'll prepare a menu specifically for them using seasonal ingredients, flavors that they like and appreciate. We'll do like a 5-course, 7-course, 10-course meal.
Sure.
Just based on what they want, giving them awesome food that I create from locally sourced seasonal ingredients. I bring in all the dishes, all the crystal, all the china, everything, all the linens, come in, cook there, prepare, serve, clean up, and disappear like it never even happened. They're just left with a full belly and the memory of awesome food. So I do a lot of that. The mainstay of what I do as a private chef, though, is weekly meal prep. I have a roster of clients that I cook for. Every Thursday they get a menu. Hey, here's what I'm making this week because this is what I know is available at the farmer's market. What I can get from my suppliers and purveyors.
Do you try to usually go with like organic or locally sourced ingredients?
Organic doesn't matter to me at all.
Okay.
I don't, for lots of reasons, and that's a whole different conversation that would probably take another couple hours. But locally sourced is very important to me for lots of reasons. Not just nutritionally speaking, which is a priority for a lot of my clients, but flavor wise. The more local something is, the better flavor it has, simply because it's been in the ground longer. If you go to the farmer's market and buy beets or carrots right now, they were probably harvested yesterday or the day before.
Yeah, they're more fresh.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas, so they've absorbed more nutrients. They're at the peak of ripeness right now. Whereas if you buy, carrots or beets, from, say, Walmart or any other grocery store, they were harvested, maybe a week to maybe even
They're
a
kind
month
of at
ago.
the end of their life cycle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so as they're harvested before they're ripe so that they'll ripen on the journey. And so they're not really developing any further flavor as they're sitting there on the shelf. They're not, pulling in any more nutrients from the soil or anything like that. So yes, local, absolutely. I get as much of my produce and proteins locally as I possibly can. And I keep it seasonal too for that very reason.
Yeah.
What's in season tastes better. And I mean, as a chef, it's all about the flavor, and nutrition is important to several of my clients. I've got a dietitian on staff that helps me balance out, proteins, carbs, fats, the macronutrient values for each client to make sure they get what's going to support them in their health and fitness goals. But as a chef, I want to make sure that it tastes really awesome too.
Yeah.
And so you'll do this for one person or an entire family of 10, as many people.
Yeah. I've got some people that's just, single guy. He's like, yeah, I'm a bachelor. I have no interest in cooking. I do what I do and that's what I love. And so I just want somebody to prepare food for me that keeps me healthy and, that I love to eat. So that's what I want.
He wants a wife without a wife.
Exactly.
Wow. That sounds
so that's who I am.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So
That does sound wonderful.
On Saturdays, I hit the farmer's market. Tuesday, me and my staff hit the kitchen bright and early. Prep meals, package them up, label them, put them in coolers. My delivery drivers start showing up about 1:30, 2 o'clock, loading up with coolers, and off they go all across the Wasatch Front to.
So you package it and send it to them, and then they cook it.
Yeah, so like lunches are packaged in Tupperware type containers.
Okay.
They just it's labeled. It says here's Tuesday's lunch. Cool. So on the way out the door on Tuesday, they grab it, run to the office. Lunch comes around, they pop it in the microwave for 1 to 2 minutes. Boom, they've got a hot, home cooked, fresh meal right there for them.
That's awesome.
Dinner's packaged in foil containers. Basically, I mean, the most you're ever going to have to do is pop it in the oven at 350 for 30 minutes. Boom. And it's better than a Marie Callender's pot pie. So.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
We need to look. We need to look into this,
We
Chrissy.
really do, because I don't like cooking.
See, and the thing is
okay.
I don't mind cooking. I just have a million other things that I would rather be doing.
Well, and that's the problem. It takes a few hours to cook. You eat for 10 minutes, and then it takes a few hours to clean up.
Yeah.
And if you do that every day, you're losing so much valuable time working on something that you could be specializing in.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that there's a website? You have a website. Is it?
chefjlooney.com.
Okay, and I'll put that at iamsaltlake.com with this episode's show notes.
And you can find me on Facebook. I'm easy to track down on social media.
I was just wondering, because I knew you had a website for this private chef type thing.
And you kind of specialize in like bodybuilding too, right? You kind of
I've got several fitness professionals and fitness competitors that I prep meals for too. Yes,
that's so great.
Is there a big competition for private chefs in Salt Lake, or is that kind
I don't know if there is or not? Like the truth is, I mean, there are a couple other meal prep companies, but nobody really does it the way I do it. All these other meal prep companies that really specialize in the gym crowd. They approach it from, okay, here's how much protein you need, here's how much fat, and here's how much carb you need in each meal. So here's some chicken breast, here's some steamed broccoli, and here's some brown rice. There you go. They approach it from what macros do you have that you need filled? What are your nutritional requirements? And let me fill those. As a chef, I'm like, okay, here's what's in season and here's what's awesome. And this is the food that I want to make from these ingredients that I know are awesome. Now, how can I make that recipe fit into the macronutrients that you need? So I'll make adjustments.
Customized.
Yeah, exactly. So I approach it from a food and flavor standpoint first, and then make it fit the macros and their nutritional needs rather than the other way around. But as far as like other private chefs that do what I do, I'm sure there are some out there. I just don't know of them.
What about those companies that are out of
like
state?
Like Sunbasket or Blue Apron?
Blue Apron and stuff.
I mean, they'll ship it through the mail. That just seems so weird to me.
Well, and the truth is, they fill a really great niche, but it's for people who, ultimately you still have to do some cooking, and some prep.
But you don't have to I actually spent part of today looking online at Pinterest, looking at recipes, thinking about going to the store and making lists in my head. And then I was like, that is just so much work.
Yeah, it's overwhelming.
I'll just go to Wendy's. You know what I mean?
And that's not uncommon. That's like so many people do that.
Yeah.
And so even I have clients who love to cook, but the truth is they would much rather be doing something else with their time. They want to cook like dinner, as a Sunday dinner on the weekend.
And it's great to cook if you have the stuff there.
For sure.
It's the planning that is really difficult. Planning and getting the stuff.
Well, and like in your case, you have 3 kids that all want something different.
That's why I give up every time. I'm like, I could make this meal. I could follow this meal plan. Chris and I would eat it. Great. But then the 3 kids, I'd still have to make 3 different meals. So screw it. Everyone gets cereal.
And again, not uncommon.
Yeah.
So on a different note, to kind of shift gears a little bit, I know social media plays a big role and what you do with the food trucks and personal chef, how big of a role has it played with the growth of your business? Is social media important?
So yeah, social media is like the only thing that grows my business. That's like the only, like, I don't spend money on radio advertising. I don't have any TV ads. I don't have any billboards. Like, I don't have a marketing budget. You know, I mean, everything I do comes through either my personal Facebook page or my business page. And the Chow Truck, I mean, that's, you know, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and that's, you know, that's how people find us. That's where how they know where we're located, you know, what days we're going to be where, what times we're going to be there. That's kind of, and we have lots of regular clients that plan their week according to where we're going to be and where they're going to find us at.
Does it frustrate you when businesses don't take advantage of social media? I mean, I guess
because it leaves more business for me.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
And there are food trucks that don't post. You know, it's always fascinating to me that there are food trucks that I mean, I look at their social media. It's like, guys, I really want to come to your food truck and eat your food, but I can't find you.
Yeah, you don't know it.
Why do you make it so hard to find you? You know, I don't know where I'm on the road. I know that you're the food truck that I want to eat at, and I can't find you. You know, and so I'm going to go somewhere else, Wendy's or some shit.
Yeah, exactly. Something that you know is staying there.
Do they just kind of expect people to be driving by and be like, oh, there's that food truck?
Some of them, yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if they just don't think about it. I mean, they're focused on the food. They're like, we'll be here. People will find us. You know, they're focused on their truck, but they're not thinking about people. Outside of it.
Yeah,
you know?
and that's an incredibly myopic view. I mean, you can't just think, oh, my food is so awesome. People are going to just swarm as soon as I open my doors. But they got to fucking know about it.
It's pretty typical for a lot of business owners, though, because they're not social media experts.
Well, it frustrates me with social media. Like if say they have a Twitter account or something like that, and then you try to send them a message or try to contact them, and they don't respond.
Yeah.
It's like, hello, are you there?
In this day and age, it's really important.
You know, and that's why I think it's so important. And that's why I was curious because, I mean, I think nowadays, I mean, Facebook, I mean, all that's free.
Yeah.
And so use it.
Absolutely. Exploit the hell out of it, for sure.
Exactly.
You know, and I mean, Facebook is, I mean, that's where a lot of people find us for catering events. You know, like if you look on the Chow Truck Facebook page, you know, Facebook tells you how quickly businesses respond. Ours is like responds almost immediately. You know, I mean, we're on it. You know, we like to respond to people. People hit us up. It's like, hey, I want you to come out and, you know, cater my birthday party. Awesome. We're there. You know, let's get in touch with this person. That's money. That's business. And it's another opportunity for us to share what we love to do.
And if you're responsive to people, they'll spread the word about you. So you get the word of mouth, which is still the most powerful way of networking.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, the truth is any of the caterings that I do, like I don't market my catering at all. I get calls all the time. Hey, I know you do the food truck and I know you do this personal chef thing, but do you cater to like, you know, weddings and stuff? Hell yeah. And that's, I mean,
like that's the bread and butter. Right?
Yeah. That's, you know, that's so I never mention catering. I never really put anything out there about it. But I do 2, 3, sometimes 4, you know, big catering gigs each month.
That's awesome.
And it's, you know, that's just word of mouth stuff from people who have been to a wedding that I've catered. I'm like, oh, I want him to do my wedding.
Yeah.
You know?
So what advice would you give somebody? Say they're interested in getting involved in the restaurant or food truck. Is there 1 or 2 pieces of advice that you would give them?
Absolutely. The biggest thing, make sure you love it.
Yeah.
You know, because the truth is the food service industry just in general is fucking brutal. It'll chew you up and spit you out, you know, and if you don't just love it, like you love it more than your firstborn child, you might not be in the right industry, you know. And I love my firstborn kid, I do. And, you know, it's the truth is it wouldn't really be a choice. I love him more, but you know, seriously, that's the level you got to be on. That's where the passion's got to be. It's like, you've got to love it that much. You know, I mean, I've been very blessed and very fortunate. You know, I'm 46 years old now, so 6 years ago is when I got back into food and took that massive pay cut, making $8.50 an hour.
That's actually super quick that you've been able to escalate to the point you're at now. Yeah,
where I've got, you know, 3 very successful businesses and, you know, making 10 times more than I ever was in corporate America. So it's like, you know, and that comes from passion. Yeah, and I love it. Like every day, I was like, I seriously get to do this for a job. This is, awesome. You know, it's like even driving down here, I was just thinking, it's like, you know, I could never work another office job. I mean, yeah, there's like times where things get like really stressful. It's like, you know, especially with the truck in the wintertime, you know, business drops off significantly. It's like, how am I going to, you know, there's stuff to figure out. How am I going to keep this truck running? How am I going to make payroll this week? You know, there's tons of stuff to figure out. But with all that stress, I still love it. You know, I love it. I love every day of it, you know, and so it just makes working through those problems so much easier. So the bottom line is make sure you just love it. Whatever it is you do, whether you're getting in the restaurant industry, whether you want to do something completely different, you know, I mean, whatever your deal is, make sure you just love it. That's the bottom line, man.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, and that's even me with, I'm kind of at that shifting of direction myself. And I'm just like, I want so badly to wake up every day and just be stoked to go to work, you know, and very few people can say they are, but
it's true.
Let's shift gears a little bit. Sure. A few questions I ask everybody that comes on the show is, let's say someone was visiting Salt Lake City for a day or two. Is there a few things you would tell them? You got to check this out. You got to go to this area of town. You got to go to this building. You got to check something out. Is there anything you would say? I mean, I've had the temple or the library or...
Yeah, and I mean, those are good answers. You know, it's like, check out Temple Square. You know, I mean, the Mormons are weird and fascinating people, but it's very much a part of our culture.
But it's a classic.
Yeah, regardless of what your take on Mormonism is or, you know, what your relation to it is, it's part of Utah's culture. You know, very much a part of Salt Lake. So it's very much worth taking a look at. You know, go check out Temple Square, go to the Visitor Center, check out their stuff. You know, I mean, that's a little cliche. For me, I would say hike Mount Olympus.
Ugh.
You know, that's no joke.
Yay!
Mount Olympus is no joke. I mean, it's a 6.1 mile round trip hike. I've been up that mountain probably, I don't know, 15, 20 times over the years. Wow. But there's, you know, and it's brutal. There's like 3,000 feet of vertical gain, you know, in going up that mountain, you know, in 3 miles. So it's a brutal hike. It's no joke. You got to be prepared for it. But I'm telling you what, man, from the top of Mount Olympus, there is nothing like that view. It's just gorgeous. It'll change your life.
I could probably drag you up there, Chrissy. Let's do it.
If you dragged me in the literal sense, I would totally go with you. Preferably on a cot of some sort.
What would you change about Salt Lake City? Is there one or two things? Liquor laws. That's typical.
And our idiotic legislature. I'd change them too. They're all damn morons. Jim DeBacchus, he's the exception. I like him.
Yeah, Jim's a good guy. Jim is a really good guy. Favorite local eating spots? I ask this all the time. Everybody that comes on here, I know you have the Chow Truck and your thing, but is there a few places you enjoy going to stuff your face?
Absolutely. The one that I miss the most is Plum Alley. Ryan Lauder's Plum Alley. He had it there for a little bit, and it had like the best ramen I've ever had in my life. It was a revelation. Yeah. And he closed it down so he could change it over to Copper Common, which is fantastic. And I love that place too, but I really miss Plum Alley. Crown Burger, I mean, meat on got meat. A good burger. It's like
they do.
Yeah, they do.
Everybody's like, "Oh, Crown Burger, they got awesome gyros." I wouldn't fucking know, because you go to Crown Burger, you got to get the Crown Burger,
right?
You know, that's just the way it is. You don't get anything else at Crown Burger. So I love Crown Burger. I really dig Pago. Just the innovation that they have there. I mean, Copper Indian's great. There's so many different places that are just really fantastic, but Pago is one of my favorite go-to places. Le Madeline, Romina Rasmussen's bakery there, she does just fantastic stuff. And Fillings and Emulsions, Adalberto Diaz's place. The guy's an artist and a genius when it comes to pastry and desserts and stuff. I mean, it's just amazing. And probably last would be Frody Volger's place, Salt and Smoke. You want anything to do with meat, you know, like charcuterie, cured meats, Frody's your guy.
Where's that at? Where?
He just moved his place. I don't know where he's moving to.
I was going to say, I don't know if I've been there.
Google.
Yeah, no, you should Google that shit and look at a book.
Check it out. Add it to the list.
Frody used to be up at, he had a meat counter at Caputo's.
Okay.
Before he opened Salt and Smoke. But track him down. Check out Salt and Smoke. Frody knows his stuff when it comes to meat.
And I love meat.
Yeah, so. No, like seriously, sausage,
Me too.
like cured meats, duck confit. I mean, the guy's a genius, for real. So that's some of my recommendations.
Where do you see yourself in the future with all this? Do you ever plan on opening up a restaurant? You want to keep the food truck thing going, maybe get another food truck? I mean, where do you see yourself?
That's an interesting question. I get people asking me, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I don't know, because the truth is 5 years ago, I wouldn't have seen myself here.
Sure.
Yeah,
you know, 5 years ago, I was a line cook, and my biggest aspiration was, I want to make it to executive chef, you know?
Right.
I never could have imagined myself here, you know? So
even if you're laser focused, like priorities shift and change.
Exactly.
You never know.
And I really prefer to kind of just go with the flow. And, you know, I mean, if I get to wake up every morning, do what I love, and be really fucking good at it, I'm happy. and so where the road leads, don't know. I'm totally open to, maybe one day I will own a restaurant. Traditionally I've been opposed to it because I didn't, I'm not interested in that kind of stress or, investment of my time and energy. But 5 years ago, I wasn't invested in owning a food truck either. And here I am.
I like that response.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you just got to let yourself kind of go with the flow.
I like that you're open to new opportunities.
See where it happens.
And I get seriously, I field probably 3 or 4 new opportunities every week. People come and say, hey, we should do this, or hey, we should collaborate, or hey, I've got this opportunity, and I'm happy to take a look at all of them, and if it makes sense, if it's, here's kind of my criteria, if it's going to light me up, like it's something I just absolutely love and it just sets my soul on fire, I'm in. If it's going to make me a shit ton of money, I'm in. If it does both of them, even better.
Right.
If it doesn't do one of those 3 things, I'm out. And so it's really that easy.
It's a good rule of thumb.
Before we wrap this up, do you have like a motto or a piece of advice that you would leave with listeners? Something like a words of inspiration from Jay Looney.
Kind of my mantra, since I got back into food, and I know this to be true. It sounds cliche as fuck, but just follow your bliss, and the money will come. That's just the God's honest truth. Be willing to pay any price. When I got back into food, there was a very real possibility that I was going to lose my house, my car, my wife. I was jumping into the deep end, burning the bridges. There was no holding back. I was in, regardless of what price I had to pay. I knew that I was going to be in the food service and I was going to do something. I was willing to be a line cook, getting paid $8.50 an hour for the rest of my life. That's how serious I was about getting into the food service industry. And when you're that serious about it, when you're that invested in your passion, when you're willing to just, burn the ships in the harbor, magic happens. That's just the God's honest truth. And I never, again, it sounds cliche as fuck, and I never would have believed it. But
well, it sure lights a fire under your ass pretty quick too.
For sure. For sure.
Like, I got to make this work. I got to make this happen.
Build your lifestyle around, what lights you up, not the other way around. So many people are just like, oh, I want the boat, and I want the 4-wheeler, I want the house, and I want the vacation home, and I have to make this much money to make that happen. And they worry so much about the money.
They don't realize that they're just building stress instead of like having a life.
And the thing is you could tell if somebody is passionate, like even with you, it's like you want to eat your food because you are passionate about it, right? Like you're like, you go into, you've been in places, I'm sure you've eaten places and you're like, these people don't even care about this. So why should I even eat here? And so the thing is you follow excited people, energetic people. I know I do.
Oh yeah. It's the only way to go, Be around people who like what they do.
For sure.
How can people find you? Social media links. Again, I'll put all this at iamsaltlake.com with this episode, but go ahead and rattle them off.
Super easy to find me. Just at Chef Jay Looney. And it's just the letter J. That's my whole first name. So Chef, CHEF, J, the letter Looney, LOONEY, just like the cartoons. That'll find you on Instagram. That'll find me on Facebook. That'll find me in lots of places. And Instagram, it's totally worth following my Instagram feed. It's all food
it's
porn
just
and puppies.
Food porn.
Yeah.
Oh, and puppies.
My puppy's in
and
once in a while. Yeah.
What kind of puppy do you have?
He's a Boston Terrier pug mix, and he's the cutest goddamn thing you've ever seen.
Oh man, that's like my dream dog, a little Boston Terrier.
That would be adorable.
He's just adorable. He makes an appearance every once. It's mostly food porn, no lie, but he's in there once in a while.
I love it.
Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap this up? I know there's probably a million other things we could talk about.
I could talk food all night long. You want to go into the wee hours? I'll make you breakfast in the morning.
I'm just glad I had 2 taquitos from 7-Eleven on my way over here because I would be super hungry, like listening to you talk about food this long.
Well, thank you for that.
Well, I've had a hell of a conversation. Thank you so much for coming and doing the podcast. I know we've talked about it for a while, bringing you on and then just buckling it down and getting a date set. So
well, I'm glad it finally happened too. I love what you do. I think it really makes a difference in the community in highlighting just the diversity of Salt Lake, and Utah as well. I think it's fantastic, and I'm really honored to be a part of it. So mad gratitude, man. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Thank you. All right. Many thanks to Jay Looney for coming on this episode. Head on over to iamsaltlake.com/260. Believe it or not, that's for episode 260. You can, all the links to connect with him, connect with the Chow Truck, find out more about his projects. Let Jay Looney know you heard him on this episode. It's really important that we kind of all network together and make this city a little bit tighter.
The more we help each other, the more everyone lifts each other up,
Exactly. And it's not Small Lake City for nothing.
Exactly. We're all here to support each other.
Hey, this episode of the podcast is sponsored by Jed's Barbershop. You want to look good, so go get a haircut, a beard trim, even a straight razor shave. Jed's Barbershop is open 7 days a week, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday 9 to 7, and Sunday 12 to 5. They even have 2 locations. One of them is right downtown at 212 South, 700 East, and in Sugar House at 2153 East, 2100 South. No appointment is necessary. Head on over to jedsbarbershop.com for more information about them. I want to take a moment and talk about our awesome Patreon supporters. These are some top-notch listeners that are supporting the show. We want to give them a shout-out for helping keep this train moving.
Yeah, thank you.
Basically, if you're unfamiliar, Patreon is like an ongoing Kickstarter where even being a $1 supporter helps the show out a ton. Head on over to iamsaltlake.com/supporter. Find out more about them. I'm going to read down the list here of supporters, people that are kind of keeping the show alive. All right, I want to give a shout-out to our wonderful Ryan Prince.
Thanks, Ryan.
He has been a supporter of the show for quite a while. He's actually one of the top-notch $25.
And he's always here to help us take pictures, and
he's a great guy.
Yeah.
Britt West, Sketchy Brit, Etch-a-Sketch Brit. She's one of the $25
one of our big supporters.
Plus Patreon supporters. And then we have some $5 supporters, Scott Knopf, Joy, my nephew Rob Knight, and Nikki Line. Really appreciated. Many, many thanks to them as well for supporting the show. And then our $1 supporters, Brian Young and Jeff Perry. Many thanks to them for supporting the podcast as well. Again, go to iamsaltlake.com/supporter where you can become a supporter. And like I said, kind of keep the ball rolling, the oil, the little gears greased up.
Make us a well-oiled machine.
You know, I mean, it doesn't go unnoticed. And
No.
I just wanted to give a shout out to them. Hey, another way you can support the show, though, we have I Am Salt Lake mugs for sale for $10 at Watchtower Cafe right here in Salt Lake City. Their address is 1588 South State Street, kind of right across the street from the South City campus there.
Yeah.
Right on State Street. You can head on there and buy yourself one of the I Am Salt Lake mugs. Hey, so anything else you want to mention, Chrissy, before we wrap this show up?
Nope. Just go buy a mug.
I want to thank everybody for listening to this interview that we had with Jay Looney. It was such an honor to bring him on the podcast, get to know his story, and kind of find out how he got to where he's at today. Hey, we got a brand new episode each and every week. Subscribe however you listen to podcasts. Stitcher Radio, Google Play, iTunes. How can people find those?
They can find them easily by going to iamsaltlake.com/, and then I'll give you the list of them. iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or find us on iamsaltlake.com/Facebook or iamsaltlake.com/Twitter.
So awesome.
It'll redirect you straight to those pages.
And then our voicemail line, 385-202-5926. You can leave a voicemail, send a text message. You can email us, send us a Facebook message, send us a tweet. We'd
love to hear from you.
We want to keep this conversation going.
Yes.
They don't need to end after each episode. So with that being said, get out, enjoy your week, enjoy the city, support local.
And good night, Grammy.